Hey, I'm back. Welcome to the second episode of the podcast in the booth. My name is Faheem. I'm your local guy. I'm your financial advisor slash podcast host. And today we're going to talk a little bit more about a few things I kind of lightly touched on. So, first thing, another assignment. If you can, go to Google, type in Google. What is the percentage of failures for IUL policies? And Google's going to spit out some information for you. Now, I'm going to kind of tell you what it is, but I want you to actually look for yourself. And Google's going to tell you that IUL policies fail within the first 20 years that they issue. And it gives you the reasons. They say, now, why are you beating up on IUL? Well, I don't think they're great policies. And the other thing is they are not being sold the way they are intended to be sold. So what does that mean? They're telling people, oh, be your own bank, take out policy loans. That's not why the cash account exists for any cash account policy. I'm going to tell you why the cash account exists. The cash account is there because the older you get, the more expensive your insurance costs based on your age. So a person who is young can get a lower rate on insurance, but a person who's older, the insurance is going to be very big. Now, how big are we talking about? I'm going to give you an example of guaranteed acceptance life. There's commercials about it. You know what commercials I'm talking about. And it's $9 and change per unit. What is a unit? A unit is generally, most companies say a unit is $1,000 of insurance. That's what most companies offer. But this particular company, based off your age, is going to offer more per unit if you're younger, like 50. And as you become older, like 75 years old, the amount you receive per unit will be lower. So what do I mean? 50 years old, 50-year-old woman who gets a policy with these companies, the max you could get is $50K, $50,000. But a unit is worth maybe $2,000. So 50 divided by 2 is 25. You would need 25 units to have $50,000 in coverage if your per unit value is $2,000. Now, as you get older, let's say in your 70s, one unit is no longer worth $2,000. It is worth $500. So now you have to buy more units to equal 50,000. What does that look like in prices? So I can tell you, because I looked the company up and I saw their rate chart, 50,000 in coverage for a young person, relatively young. 50, that's relatively young. It's not old. Who said 50 was old? That coverage can run anywhere from $250 a month and up. For a male, it could be more. Males generally cost more to insure. So a male might be $300, so something like that in the $300 range, right? For 50,000 in coverage. But as you become older, senior citizen in your 70s, that rate can go as high as hundreds more, which is like $500, $600, $700, $800 a month for $50,000 in guaranteed whole life coverage. That's a lot of money. So I'm making you aware of this because some people is like, oh, I'm going to get one of these guaranteed policies. The guaranteed policies are generally for people who's just looking for final expenses. Their policies do not go above 50,000 for this particular company I'm talking about. You know what company I'm talking about. So just keep that in mind. Now, back to this conversation about IUL. Now we could kind of understand why you have a cash account. You have a cash account because the policy monthly premium will be so high if you're old that there's no way you can afford it. So I'm talking about like $4,500 a month high. So they show you this breakdown when they show you IUL and they say you're going to have a whole lot of money. And you're like, wow, that money is there so it can be pulled and used for your extremely high premiums when you get really old, if you're blessed to get old, and your policy won't lapse because you have a whole lot of money to pull from. That's why there's a cash account. Cash accounts are not made for you to take out loans. Because if you take out loans and your big policy premiums are being pulled out of this cash account, your policy can lapse. What is lapse? You miss your payments. You don't have enough to keep your policy going. Your policy will terminate. So when you have people telling you, oh, you should take money out, borrow money, become your own bank, and you can't pay the money back, which means you paying interest to the insurance company, not to yourself, you are not your own bank because you are the borrower. The bank or lender is the lender. Let's know where we stand on this stuff, okay? So your cash account is for if you make it to old age and your monthly premiums are like up here, like again, $3,000, $4,000 per month. That's what the cash account is for. Anybody telling you, oh, you could be your own bank and you should borrow from it, they're giving you bad advice. You're going to have to look at them like side-eyed. What is side-eyed? I have a name for this. You know what this name is? Buddy Lee. Type in Buddy Lee in Google and you're going to see, got to look at you like Buddy Lee from the side. That means I know you trying to be slick. The other thing is that the sad thing is that people who were trained that way to tell everybody, oh, to borrow money, be your own bank, they sold these policies to their family members, and it's the worst. And their family members are probably mad at them when they lose their money, when their policy lapses and collapses. You have people who go into IUL policies and take their pension and invest it into the policy, sell real estate, take the proceeds, invest it into the policy. There was one lady who did that. She had like a $1.2 million real estate sale. She's an older woman. She rolled it into her IUL. She took the proceeds, put it into her IUL. And when she closed her policy out, because your cash account builds on years, I'm going to say decades. When she wanted to take her money out and say, listen, I don't want to deal with the policy, they was like, you're going to get $89,000. You put $1.2 million in the policy. How are you getting $89,000? Oh, that money is going to policy premiums and advanced premiums. That's not a good look. If you Google, I asked you to do this before, life insurance policies investments. They are not investments. So please do not get a life insurance policy. Forget about when people telling you, oh, you're going to be rich. They're not telling you the truth. Get a life insurance policy. Life insurance is for dying prematurely. That's it. You don't need an investment license, a securities license to sell life insurance. Therefore, it is not a security/investment. It is not. You need security licenses to sell securities. Securities are investments. Please hear me on this one. All right? So I'm saying that because I had to kind of clear that up. A lot of people was like, hey, what is this conversation about? Now I want to talk a little bit about the opportunity, because I didn't know about finance. I wasn't born knowing about finance. I had to learn it. And I had to learn it late in life. Well, I'm looking for people who also are willing to learn about finance to join the team. Make some money in your spare time right now, because I'm going to tell you this. You're going to hear a lot of people say, oh, you could do this part-time. You're building a business part-time. What does that mean? I'm building something that I can leave to my children. A business that's going to generate passive income that I can leave to my children, and they can collect off the efforts I made. Your job is not going to let you do that for the most part. If you have a job and let's say you leave the job or you pass away, nobody can march your child up in the job and say, hey, could you give my child a job? And I'm not dumping on jobs. People need jobs. When you want to talk about investing and building wealth, the money's going to come from a job. So we're not dumping on jobs here. I have a job. Okay? So, but this is something to think about when you want to have passive income while you're working a job. That is, you're trading time for money. So it's not passive. You have to work for it, right? But you can build something that generates this income. So just keep that in mind. Another thing I want to talk about a little bit about is priorities. What do I mean by priorities? I mean the things we focus on, the things we spend money on. So I ask a lot of people that I'm talking to when they say, they're asking about policies or investing, anything. And I ask them, do you think you can blow like $50 in a week easily? And they're like, yeah, blow $50 very easy. Okay. If you do that, that's $200 a month, basically. You could actually invest $100 to $200 a month in a investment vehicle and have money for your future rather than blow the money. We can have a conversation about that as well, right? But these are concerns. And then here's another concern. I don't know if you know this. Debt is cancer to your financial future. Debt will prevent you from having a good financial future. What do I mean by that? I was telling you about this rule of 72 kind of thing. You divide the number 72 by the interest rate. So if you get 9%, 72 divided by 9, that's going to be, you're going to give you a certain amount of years, right? This is something that is discussed when it talks about investments. The other side of that is creditors use it against us, but their interest rate is not 9%. Their interest rate for most credit cards is like 24%. That's huge. That means if you don't pay your bills, if you don't pay your credit card bills for like 3 to 4 years, they're going to double. So the way things are kind of structured, which is kind of interesting, is debt seems to double at a higher rate than our investments do. It's designed that way. Here goes something else. We spend money on cable TV packages or satellite TV packages, all of these different things, cell phone bills. And we make sure we pay these bills. Like television or watching TV is highly important to us. That's a lot of us. Being on our phone is highly important. But if you pass away prematurely, will your phone company send a check to your family? Will your cable company send a check to your family? I don't think so. So that begs the question, where are our priorities? Why do we put more importance on television than securing our income? Why is that? Why would we do that? For some reason, we're like trained to behave in this manner. And I think that we should start coming out of this training, because if you are a person who does not have control of your spending and your budget, and you're not investing for the future to have something grow over time, that is like a recipe for poverty. That's like the poverty secret recipe. This is how, it's not secret. I mean, a lot of people do it. They don't have any responsibility. They get their money, they spend it before they get it. This is something that we want to avoid. So having a emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of your expenses in the account in case something happens, you can spend it on an emergency. Have a short-term goal fund. That fund is something like you want to purchase something. You don't want to use credit. You don't want to use credit, but something that you can use to account you can use to save this and then purchase an item. And then a long-term fund, which is retirement. I'm noticing something that's very common for people. I'm older than most people, so people in my age range, I have conversations with them about retirement, and they have no retirement. That, number one, means you can't retire, number one. Number two, you're going to be struggling. And when you don't plan for the future and you kind of depend on other people's help, that makes you kind of like a dependent, or you have a dependency scenario here. It's better to be independent, to have money, than to depend on someone, because you never know what that person's going to do, in the future. What if somebody says, "Oh, that's it, Social Security's done"? What are you going to do? Say, "Oh, I was dependent on Social Security." Well, a lot of people were, but it's not here. I'm just throwing out hypotheticals. And this could very well happen. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know the future. But if you have money accrued over time, that's how you build wealth, accrued over time. There's no instant snap of a fingers and it's like, "Oh, I'll put this money in the stock and tomorrow and today and tomorrow is $10 million. I'm going to sell it." It doesn't work that way. And getting back on the job conversation, you need a job, you need an income in order to invest money if you don't already have money. A lot of people say it's a saying, and it's not what you cop, it's what you keep. Think about that. It's not what you earn, it's how much you keep. So you may have a job paying very little money, but if you're investing a little bit of that little bit of money, it's going to equal something. But if you have a job like a lot of people who's getting 6 figures and, doing well for themselves, but they live in paycheck to paycheck because they don't know how to break up their money into the 3 pots I just mentioned, and they don't know how to invest for the future, then that's a problem. So I want you all to think about those things and ask Google, what is the percentage of IUL policy failures, to know that it's not really a great option for you in IUL. You're overpaying for insurance anyway. And the reason why the cash accounts exist is to take away the money out of the policy when you're older. So yeah, if you have any questions, hit me up. And if you're interested in joining the team or learning about what I do, DM me. We could have a one-on-one. I could explain some stuff to you, and then we see how we move forward from there, because we're looking for people who are honest, people who have integrity, people who are hungry, people who are willing to put in some work. And on that last note, putting in work, would you rather work hard your entire life and be retired for a short period of time, or would you rather work hard for 5 to 10 years and be retired for the rest of your life? It's up to you. I like the one where it's the 5 to 10 and then I could be retired, because when people put their whole life into their job, they're giving the job their best years, their youth, their smart, their intelligence, their strength. They're giving that to the job. I'm going to say my dad had a great job. He was an elevator escalator mechanic for the transit authority, and he worked. He didn't take sick days. He didn't go on vacations. It's like he was like that employee, and then he retired, and he did not even live 10 years into retirement. He did not make it to 10 years. He gave his best years to the job, and he died when he retired. Within a few years, it wasn't 10 years. So this is the thing that I'm telling everybody. There's nothing wrong with being dedicated and working for your job. I'm not saying anything about that. I'm just saying that, would you rather work for yourself and give yourself a chance, or would you rather give it away to somebody else who you're making wealthy? That's something for you to think about. And we'll talk again. Bye.